this is Brittany from Daniel's Coffee Barrel. Just wanted to wish CBX a very happy anniversary from Daniel and the team.
Okay, I just sent the money. I'll WhatsApp you the tracking number.
Thanks, Daddy. I can't wait to buy that PS5.
Listen to me. Your birthday money is not just for spending. Remember what I told your mom? Remember to open the bank account immediately after collecting the money. Your mom has her ID, TRN, proof of address, proof of income, and your school ID.
I'm not an adult yet, so Mommy will have to open the account with me.
Yes. Anyways, I'm headed back to work, so call me later. I love you guys.
This financial literacy tip is brought to you by Bank of Jamaica, promoting financial inclusion. For more information, visit our BOJ Real Talk playlist on our YouTube channel.
The time by Kari Chris is 6 p.m. Time for CBX Business News. The business news headlines is brought to you by CBX Wealth Management, making more possible.
A third-term mandate, a landmark trade deal, and Europe holds steady. Good evening and welcome to CBX Business News for Wednesday, September 17, 2025. I'm Rochelle Moncrief. Thanks for joining us. Coming up in the newscast, locally, Prime Minister Andrew Holness sworn in for a historic third term charts ambitious path to transform Jamaica's economy. On the regional front, Barbados hails the World Trade Organization's Fisheries Subsidies Agreement as a landmark for trade and sustainability. And on the global stage, inflation holds steady across the UK and Eurozone, with central banks expected to pause. Stay tuned as we unpack these stories and more right after the
Wealth is not simply counted in dollars or cents, but in the time we spend with love, in love, giving love. Wealth is not simply a means to an end. It is the means to live out loud. Wealth is more than money. It's about family, the memories you create, the legacy you leave behind, and your ability to enjoy life in the moment. It's also about seeing the QMAX possibilities and seizing investment opportunities to achieve the future you want and deserve. Which is why QMAX Wealth will focus on your investments so you can experience more. Because true wealth is truly more. To start investing today, call 876-926-7767.
Giselle Riley here, wishing CBX a happy anniversary. Thank you for sharing the news that people need and want to hear. Here's to many, many more years to come.
The local news is brought to you by Darriman Trading, better from the start. Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean flavors and fragrances, tease the senses, and Pulse Investments.
Welcome back to CBX Business News. We begin with Jamaica's new political and economic chapter. Jamaica entered the history books on Tuesday as Dr. Andrew Michael Holness was sworn in for an unprecedented third consecutive term as the country's 9th Prime Minister. The moment marked more than political continuity. It signaled the unveiling of a bold economic vision that could reshape the island's future. Standing before dignitaries, international partners, and thousands of Jamaicans, Holness shifted quickly from ceremony to substance, laying out a sweeping growth agenda. At its core was a pledge to eradicate absolute poverty, while also cutting the red tape that has long frustrated business activity.
I say to you today, Jamaica can and Jamaica will. We will eradicate absolute poverty. We will build an economy that provides opportunities for all. We will make Jamaica the safest society in the Caribbean. We will restore respect and values and raise a generation that chooses peace over violence, discipline over disorder, and love over hate. We will build a transformative education system that will produce a generation of confident and innovative problem solvers. We will make Jamaica the most efficient and least corrupt jurisdiction to do business. We will make Jamaica a socially just and equitable place. And we will claim our rightful place among the leading nations of the world.
The Prime Minister also announced the launch of SPEED, short for streamlining processes for efficiency and economic development.
For too long, bureaucracy has frustrated investment, slowed innovation, and drained productivity. Too many Jamaicans know the feeling. Endless forms, long lines, and red tape that stand in the way of progress. Of even greater concern is that inefficient systems breed and provide an incentive for corruption. That is why we have developed the SPEED, Streamlining Processes for Efficiency and Economic Development program. This is our commitment to cut red tape, to remove unnecessary obstacles, and to ensure that government is not a barrier to opportunity, but a platform for success.
Prime Minister of Jamaica, Dr. Andrew Holness. Cybersecurity has become one of the fastest growing frontiers of global technology, with analysts estimating the sector will expand at 12% annually through 2028. For Jamaica, where banks, telecoms, and government agencies are deepening their digital footprints, the message is urgent. Cybercrime is no longer a distant threat, but a present risk to financial stability and public trust. Local authorities have already flagged attempted breaches on payment systems and critical infrastructure, underscoring vulnerabilities across the economy. Consequently, Morgan Stanley's cybersecurity and network equipment analyst, Meta Marshall, is warning companies to get ahead of increasingly sophisticated attacks before they become disruptive shocks.
As the digital landscape grows increasingly complex, the scale and severity of cybercrime expand in tandem. This means that even as companies spend more, the risks are multiplying even faster. For investors, this is both a warning and an opportunity. Cybersecurity is now a $270 billion market, and we expect it to grow at 12% per year through 2028. That's one of the fastest growth rates across software. And here's another number worth noting. Chief information officers we surveyed expect cybersecurity spending to continue to grow at 50% faster than software spending as a whole. This makes cybersecurity the most defensive area of IT budgets, meaning it's least likely to be cut even in tough times.
Morgan Stanley's cybersecurity and network equipment analyst, Meta Marshall. In other news, Limnas and Bards Limited, the lab, has reported a steep decline in profitability for the 9 months ended July 31, 2025, as rising expenses and softer revenues weighed heavily on performance. The advertising and media group recorded a 49% drop in net profit to Jamaican $42.3 million, down from Jamaican $83.6 million in the prior year. Earnings per share slipped to 4 cents compared to 9 cents a year earlier. Revenues fell 3.4% to Jamaican $727.3 million, reflecting project seasonality and a heavier tilt toward media placements, a lower margin segment relative to agency and production services. Media contributed to Jamaican $372.7 million, while production generated Jamaican $241.5 million, and agency services Jamaican $113 million. Gross profit eased 2.6% to Jamaican $277.2 million, but operating costs surged, driven by strategic hires in business development, content, and client service, alongside facility upgrades. The company's balance sheet remained stable, with total assets of Jamaican $1.9 billion and shareholders' equity at Jamaican $680.8 million. However, cash and cash equivalents fell to Jamaican $326.6 million, down Jamaican $53.4 million year on year, reflecting greater investment in proprietary content. We move to the latest updates from the JSE equities markets. In Wednesday's trading session, the JSE market activity resulted in the trading of 104 stocks, of which 38 advanced, 50 declined, and 16 traded firm. Leading the winners are First Rock Real Estate Investments USD, Cargo Handlers, A.S. Bryden & Sons Holdings, and G West Corporation ordinary shares, while leading the losers, Caribbean Assurance Brokers, Consolidated Bakeries Jamaica, Salada Foods, and VM Investments. The main index advanced by 1,986.83 points, or 0.63%, to close at 319,335.50 points. The junior market index declined by 9.17 points, or 0.28%, to close at 3,323.16 points.
And it's time for Market Education Feature, brought to you by CARICRIS, Regional Ratings, Global Standard.
In today's Market Education Feature, we're looking at the term insolvency. Insolvency occurs when a business is no longer able to repay its debts. This often happens after a decline in sales, rising expenses from goods or labor, or in some cases, poor decision-making. A financially distressed company may therefore be unable to meet its obligations to creditors. Insolvency is not limited to businesses. It also applies to individuals. A person is considered insolvent when they are unable to pay debts such as a mortgage, credit card balance, student loan, or car loan.
The Market Education Feature was brought to you by CARICRIS, Regional Ratings, Global Standards.
And that's it for the local news segment. Please stay with us. The regional news is up next.
The local news is brought to you by Derriman Trading, better from the start. Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean flavors and fragrances, tease the senses. And Pulse Investments.
Hi, I'm Nielsen Rose, host of Let's Talk Stocks, reminding you that health is indeed wealth and time is really money. Why not spend a little time with us? Weekday mornings, 9 to 9:30 a.m. for your daily dose of business, economic, and investment insights.
Back, and now for the regional business news. Barbados has welcomed the World Trade Organization's WTO agreement on fisheries subsidies, describing it as a turning point for both global trade and environmental protection. The agreement, which came into effect on Monday, is the first WTO trade pact to enshrine sustainability as a central principle. Prime Minister Mia Mottley, delivering one of the keynote statements at the WTO ceremony in Geneva, says the ratification proved that the multilateral trading body can deliver.
The WTO Fisheries Subsidies Agreement is a landmark agreement. For the first time, we as WTO members have delivered an agreement that recognizes the complex and symbiotic relationship between trade and environmental sustainability. This is an achievement. By recognizing that irrespective of political power and fishing fleet size, the health of the ocean and its precious cargo is indeed part of the global commons, the WTO rulemaking machinery has in fact sent a strong signal. A signal that illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing will not be tolerated and will be sanctioned if it occurs.
That was Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley. St. Kitts and Nevis is moving to convert high-level Africa-Caribbean diplomacy into commerce, jobs, and skills, announcing a package of measures spanning port development, visa-free travel with Nigeria, and technical training ties with East and West Africa. Prime Minister Dr. Terence Drew, fresh from the Intra-African Trade Fair IATF in Algeria and the Africa CARICOM Summit in Addis Ababa, told a press conference on Monday that the government's priority is to lift Africa-Caribbean trade from a dismal 1% of each side's total commerce by opening market access and logistics links.
I also stress that trade must go up between Africa and the Caribbean, which is at a dismal 1% or so. And there's a lot of room for growth. And therefore, we should take advantage of the opportunities for growth between Africa and the Caribbean. This would require that there are ports of call between Africa and the Caribbean, especially West Africa, which is close to us. There should also be communication by way of air, which we are actually discussing as well. We can remember that there was a very large jet that landed here from Nigeria earlier this year, where we had a contingent from Nigeria to enhance trade, people-to-people contact, and so forth. And so we continue to work feverishly to deepen the relationship between CARICOM and the African continent.
That was Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Terence Drew. And Belize's agriculture sector is grappling with a sharp downturn in sugarcane output as the Fusarium disease continues to devastate fields, cutting production last season by over 15%, sugar by almost 24%, and revenues by as much as 40%. Forecasts for the next crop point to another 15 to 20% decline in cane harvests. Yet, officials remain resolute. Prime Minister John Briceño says official figures show that US $500,000 has already been invested in a successful experimental project, with Cabinet approving an additional US $2.5 million to treat infected cane fields.
The sugarcane industry, so vital to the North, will defeat Fusarium with a collaborative plan that is well underway. $500,000 was invested in a successful experimental project, and $2.5 million was recently approved by Cabinet to treat cane fields. Already, the Office of the Prime Minister and the Ministry of Economic Transformation has raised another $7 million from CRESAP, $1.5 million from GCF through the 5 Cs, and $7 million from DFC, which has rehabilitated over 6,000 acres of cane fields and an ongoing rehabilitation of another 35,000 acres.
That was Prime Minister of Belize, John Briceño. It's now time for news from the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 18 securities, of which 6 advanced, 6 declined, and 6 traded firm. Today's winners are Prestige Holdings, the West Indian Tobacco Company, National Enterprises, and Angostura Holdings, while leading the losers are JMMB Group, Trinidad and Tobago NGL, National Flour Mills, and Guardian Holdings. Trading activity resulted in the following movements. The All-TNT Index advanced by 2.07 points to close at 1,425.84. The Composite Index declined by 0.13 points to close at 990.62. The Cross-Listed Index declined by 0.36 points to close at 73.50. The SME Index remained at 100.65. And we take a short break, but please do stay with us. The international news segment is up next.
The Corporate Services Unit, your go-to experts for corporate secretarial solutions. We offer statutory compliance, efficient minute taking, registered office address services, management of board and members meetings, setup and maintenance of corporate registers. Stay ahead with our proactive approach to new regulations. We operate under the Trust and Corporate Service Provider, licensed to the JCSD Trustee Services Limited. We're here to simplify your corporate journey, no matter the size of your company. Contact the Corporate Service Unit today and let's streamline your compliance journey together, because your success is our business.
On behalf of the Trans-Tobago Stock Exchange and the Trans-Tobago Central Depository, I'd like to wish CBX a happy anniversary. 3 years already. Thank you for what you're doing for us as a region. Thank you for keeping us connected. Here's wishing you many more years of success. Happy anniversary, CBX.
Welcome back, and thanks for staying with us. In the international news today, inflation in both the UK and the Eurozone held steady in August, reinforcing expectations that the central banks are likely to keep interest rates on hold in the near term. Over in the UK, annual inflation remained unchanged at 3.8%, in line with market projections and still near the highest levels since early 2024. Falling airfare prices, down 3.5%, drove a slowdown in transportation inflation, 2.4% versus 3.2%, while price growth eased across several categories, including services, recreation, and clothing. However, upward pressure came from motor fuels, restaurants and hotels, 3.8%, food, 5.1%, and household goods. Core inflation eased slightly to 3.6%, also matching market projections. Meanwhile, in the Eurozone, inflation stood at 2%, just below the preliminary estimate of 2.1% and aligned with the European Central Bank (ECB's) target for a third consecutive month. The slowdown was largely due to steeper than expected decline in energy prices, down 2%, while services inflation and prices for processed food, alcohol and tobacco edged lower. Core inflation held steady at 2.3%, its lowest level since January 2022. With inflation trends stabilizing across both regions, markets widely expect the Bank of England and the European Central Bank to maintain a wait-and-see approach to monetary policy in the coming months. U.S. mortgage rates fell sharply for the third consecutive week, fueling a surge in home loan demand and marking the biggest jump in mortgage applications since early 2025. According to the Mortgage Bankers Association, MBA, the average interest rate on 30-year fixed-rate mortgages with conforming loan balances up to $806,500 dropped 10 basis points to 6.39% in the week ending September 12, the lowest level since October 2024. The decline tracked falling Treasury yields as investors increasingly expect the Federal Reserve to resume rate cuts later this month amid softening labor market data. The drop in rates triggered a 29.7% surge in total mortgage applications, the steepest weekly rise since January and the second largest since the pandemic-era crash in March 2020. Refinancing activities led the spike, with refinancing applications soaring 60% week over week as borrowers rushed to lock in lower rates. The average loan size for refinance applications also hit a record high, signaling increased activity among higher value borrowers. Meanwhile, applications to purchase new homes rose 3%, reflecting moderate improvement in housing demand. With rates now at 11-month lows and economic data pointing to a possible policy shift, housing market momentum may continue building into the fall. Foreign investors significantly increased their exposure to Canadian securities in July 2025, with net purchases totaling 26.7 billion Canadian dollars, the highest monthly inflow since September 2024, according to Statistics Canada. The figure marks a sharp rebound from the revised $1 billion in June. The surge was driven primarily by debt securities, with net purchases totaling 14.8 billion Canadian dollars. Most of that came from money market instruments, 11.1 billion, as the Bank of Canada held interest rates steady, maintaining the appeal of short-term Canadian assets. Net holding of bonds also rose by 3.7 billion. Foreign interest in Canadian equities remained strong, with 11.8 billion Canadian dollars in net purchases during the month, supported by record high levels on the TSX and continued optimism around corporate earnings. Meanwhile, Canadian investors also ramped up their exposure to global markets, increasing holdings of foreign financial assets by 17.4 billion, signaling growing confidence in international opportunities amid a stable domestic policy backdrop. Tensions between the US and China deepened this week after reports emerged that Beijing has instructed domestic tech firms to stop purchasing NVIDIA's artificial intelligence chips, a move seen as a retaliatory measure amid ongoing tech and trade disputes. In response, House Speaker Mike Johnson labeled China an adversary on Wednesday, warning that the ban highlights the growing strategic rivalry between the two countries, particularly in the high-stakes AI and semiconductor sector. NVIDIA's CEO, Jensen Huang, expressed disappointment over the reported restrictions, saying he hopes for continued engagement with Chinese customers. China has been a major market for NVIDIA's AI chips, which power everything from data centers to advanced machine learning applications. The reported ban follows a string of US export controls on advanced semiconductors and AI technologies destined for China. If confirmed, the Chinese move could further escalate tech decoupling and complicate global supply chains while potentially pressuring NVIDIA's future revenue in the region. And those were your international business stories. After the break, do rejoin us for your
let's all get fit. This summer set drip. Hip dips and split. Power in the mind, let's get healthy with it. Sometimes your body's so hard, but your body wants it. And then your head is so home, and it's so like this. So we gotta go 1, 2, 3. One more now. 1, 2, 3. Let's go. One more now. 1, 2, 3. One more now. 1, 2, 3, go.
And now to recap our top stories. In the local news, Holness sworn in for historic third term, charts ambitious path to transform Jamaica's economy. Regionally, Barbados hails WTO fisheries subsidies deal as a landmark for trade and sustainability. And internationally, UK and Eurozone inflation holds steady, central banks expected to pause. Those were the stories making today's CBX Evening News. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Rochelle Moncrief. Thanks for watching CBX, your region, your business, your
Chung. I'm the CEO of Honeybun 1982 Limited. You're watching CBX. That's Caribbean Business Exchange. Your region, your business, your source.